the Discover HamOnt Podcast, Episode 12. The weekly Discover HamOnt Podcast is dedicated to interviewing the people that make up Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, learning about what they do and why they love the city. I'm your host, Brian Hogg, and this week I interview Linda Rourke, host and producer of Hamilton Life. Linda started Hamilton Life 6 years ago at Cable 14, the local community cable station for Hamilton. We chat about how the show started, some of the great stories she's been able to share, the story of her return to the city after her broadcasting career with CTV and the Weather Network took her to Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, and some of her favorite parts about living and working in Hamilton. The episode was recorded live at the Cable 14 head office. For show notes, other episodes, and more, visit discoverhamont.ca. Welcome to the Discover HamOnt Podcast. I'm sitting here with Linda Rourke, host and producer of Hamilton Life at Cable 14. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem at all. So why don't we start a little bit about what you do here at Cable 14?
Yeah, sure. I've got a great job, I have to admit. I get to talk to all the cool people in the city, similar to what you're doing, although now I think I've just called myself cool. That's okay. I don't mind. At my age, I can call myself cool if I want to.
Absolutely.
So I'm in charge of coming up with all the content for our sort of lifestyle-y kind of magazine show here on the station called Hamilton Life. We've been doing it for 6 years. You know, it's morphed from different things, but the foundations always remain the same, and that's, you know, anything dealing with the people, places, you know, cool things in the city. We're talking about them. We're having people in studio. I also send Katie Stewart, our location host, to various locations around the city to do all kinds of crazy things. And she's also out doing our feature called Hamilton Eats that we started about 3 years ago. Okay. And she basically investigates really awesome places to eat in the city, but like one really good food item on the menu. Nice. And that's actually now spun into its sort of own show as well called Hamilton Eats. So that's, you know, kind of a side line to what we do on Hamilton Life. So it's been really great. And I've just met such amazing people. And I went to school at Mohawk, graduate of Mohawk College. So I knew the city, and now I've rediscovered why I loved it so much, even, you know, 20 some odd years ago as a student, and now coming back and sort of being immersed into the city again. It's fabulous. I mean, we are so fortunate to have a city like this that's affordable and close to so many things and has such a wealth of incredible people living here.
Absolutely. So how did the show start? Like, did it start when you came on board? Or?
It did, yeah. They were looking for a producer for kind of lifestyle programming. And at the time, I really wanted something close to home. We had just recently moved to the Waterdown area, and I didn't want to commute into the city. My boys at the time were still quite young, and I wanted to be close and have some flexibility. So when this job was posted, I thought, well, that might be all right. You know, my jobs previously had been mostly in front of the camera, although a lot of production coordination and things like that were involved. So to come in as a producer wouldn't be that far of a stretch for me. I knew about content. And so I had an idea for a show, and I presented it to them along with several other candidates. It was the most grueling interview process I've ever been through in my entire life for a job, which is, you know, people laugh because they're like, well, you know, it's just the community channel. I said, well, it was the hardest interview I ever had. I sat where we are here in the boardroom at the station, and you know, I had like, I think 8 people around the table, and I had to present this idea, and then they would ask me questions, and I ended up getting the job, which was great. And so we just sort of morphed kind of what they had at the time that was called LinkedIn, and then just developed it into more of a program, more of a show and a lifestyle show. And I came up with the idea of this Hamilton Life, and it stuck. And 6 years later, we're still doing it. So I consider myself pretty lucky because, you know, shows can change constantly. Sure. But we've stuck with Hamilton Life, which has been nice.
Well, you picked a good city. So what are some of the stories that kind of stand out, or maybe one of the stories that stands out?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, we were really fortunate to do a story on, I think her name is Ethel, and she works at, now there's 2. So we've got 2 older women in this community that one started at Tim Hortons, the other one at Wendy's. Wow. And we did stories, the fact that they were still working there and they were both in their 90s. Wow. How fantastic is that? So, and that story, I mean, those might get told mainstream television, but not the same way and with the same amount of depth and enthusiasm that we would tell them. So I think that that's what I love the most. Like, to just pick one story is hard. So I'll use the broad stroke of those two women. But there's so many other stories like that in the community that we cover. And what I like about what we do is that we get to tell the stories that most other stations just wouldn't bother, because they're good news stories, right? So they're not going to hit the mainstream newscast. Yeah. So we get to bring awareness to all of that that's happening in the community. And I think that's really what we do, is we're grassroots at the community level. Like, we're telling the stories and we're showing the things that you just wouldn't get anywhere else, which is why community television is so important.
Exactly. So what are some of the locations? You said crazy things that the On Location is doing.
Well, I think the craziest thing that, and this was before Katie Stewart has been with us now for almost 4 years, but before she started, my two videographers at the time did skydiving. Yeah, they actually jumped out of a plane, and we got it all on tape. So, or, I guess it's not tape anymore.
Well, sure.
So we still use that, right? You still say it. What else do you say? We digitized it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the craziest things. But they've climbed walls. They've done rock climbing, archery. She even went to a shooting range, with a rifle, which was kind of cool. So you just, you never know what you're going to do. And just recently, and this is the other thing too, Mohawk College has got an amazing men's basketball team, and they just won the Ontario Championships, and they're competing for the Nationals. Nice. And so she went up with them, here she is. And Katie's, I think, all of 5'1" or 2", standing with a 7-foot basketball player. So just that alone visually is so much fun. And that's what we're all about. It's between having fun and entertaining, but also telling the great stories and getting people out to see what's going on in the community.
What do you love about the city?
There's not just one thing when it comes to Hamilton, because there's just so many things. I think one of the things that I love the most is that people still think it's the armpit of Ontario or whatever. And I just laugh at that. I'm like, you know what? You people have no clue what the city has to offer. And sometimes I'm happy about that, because I don't want that, tons of people from elsewhere coming into this city. We've got, it's nice to grow, but you don't want to grow too big and too quick.
Absolutely.
But what I do like is that we offer sort of that big city with a small town feel. I really do feel that Hamilton feels more like home. Like, you don't feel lost in this city, regardless of where you go. And that's the really interesting thing about Hamilton now that it was all amalgamated, however many years ago. People are still complaining about that one. However, we have such a huge geographical footprint now, and have brought in all these communities. But so you can travel through Flamborough and you're in farm country, and then come into the downtown core, and then go out through Stony Creek and the escarpment. And, there's so much that is offered in the city, and we're right on the water. I mean, that is fantastic. We've got waterfront right there. They're doing a lot of great things with that. Our downtown is so changing. Can you imagine our downtown in 5 years? You won't even recognize it, So I think that, Hamilton is great to begin with, and then it's got such incredible room to grow, and that's what's happening right now. I think anyone who's in the city now and over the next 10 years will see a huge, I don't even want to use the word improvement, because I don't think that's fair. I think there's always room to improve, but I think you're just going to see this city become one of the best cities in Canada.
Are you from Hamilton originally?
I'm actually from a small town called Burford.
Burford.
Yes, very small town, which is just on the outside of Brantford. You used to have to go through Burford to get to Woodstock in London before the 403 was extended up to the 401 and everything. So some people would sort of stumble across 1,200 people. That's all that was in the town. Nice. So, Hamilton was the closest big city growing up for me, other than Brantford, but I wouldn't really consider it necessarily a big city. So, and I think that's probably what the attraction was for me to come here for school. Because I was from a small town, and the thought of going to Toronto was a little bit scary. Hamilton was kind of an in-between. And I'm really glad I did, because this was an awesome place to go to school, and it still is. For talk to students at Mohawk and McMaster, and I'm sure you'll hear the same from our international school. We've got an international school here too. It's great.
Columbia, No, they work really well. Yeah. So, but you've moved around quite a bit as well, right? So,
which is great. I think that's really key and important. I think I'm fortunate, because I was lucky enough to go to Montreal for a few years, working for the Weather Network. First out of school, I was in Toronto working in radio at Q107 Radio, which was really cool, even though know it had nothing to do with my schooling because I took television broadcasting. But working at Q is really fun. And so then, from there, I made my way to Montreal to the Weather Network, back to Toronto with the Weather Network, and then eventually out to the West Coast, to Vancouver, where I was a co-host of a morning show there called Vancouver Breakfast before coming back. So some of the major cities I've been fortunate enough to live in and have some sort of a media career. So coming back here now, it feels like home. I mean, it was really interesting to come back to Hamilton and still remember where everything was, even though it had been a number of years, and to see the changes, because it certainly had changed, but there was still a lot that was familiar, and that was really nice for me.
What do you think would make Hamilton a better city? And actually, I guess you've spoken a little bit about improvement. It's not necessarily improvement, but where I do think that we need change and what I will call improvement is downtown. I think that the downtown of any city is really key and important, and we still have a lot of work to do there. I can't speak to the specific problems or issues and why it hasn't changed. I'm not on council, and I know that they're faced with a lot of issues when it comes to our downtown core. It's slowly happening because of, we've got McMaster moving in down there. We've got, the health sciences and everything like that I think will help. We've got new condo developments. All of those things will help make a difference, but we still need to do something for business. Mm-hmm. So right now in Jackson Square, I think we're slowly seeing that. Nations came in. Hopefully the farmers market will survive it all, because I think having a farmers market downtown is wonderful. There's so much history there. We don't want to lose that. And I look at it that they complement each other. If I go down to the farmers market, I'm going to pop into Nations and vice versa. Mm-hmm. I think that they're starting to see better businesses come into the Jackson Square area. And then it's just a matter of the downtown. It was so sad to see Rainbow Bridal leave. Mm-hmm. They've been there forever. I went to Rainbow Bridal and used their fashions for a fashion show, a charity fashion show I did at Mohawk College in 90, probably 80, 89. Uh-huh. I'm going to say that far back. And they had been there a long time before that. So it was really kind of sad to see them go. Now, I don't know the circumstances, so it could have just been they were just done. Sure. Right? I don't know if it was because they couldn't sustain their business there any longer. You hope not, but that seems to be a lot of the problem and issues with the downtown. Mm-hmm. But we've got such a beautiful fountain, Gore Park is wonderful. There's some, what's happened on James Street. Why can't that happen downtown? Yeah. I mean, this is the question. And I think there's pockets now just on the outskirts of the main downtown core that are improving along King Street, and portions of Main Street. So I think we really need to focus on that and make those changes, because once we can start getting people to want to live and work and play in the downtown, we're going to start to see, everything else sort of fall into place. So that's what I'd like to see some direction on, and making it something that'll move it forward and change it in the next, few years for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Good. So we like to end with a bit of a lightning round, which is just some things that you find favorite about the city.
Sure.
So the first one is favorite restaurant in the city.
Oh, why do you start with such a tough one? You know how many great restaurants we have? It is unbelievable. So that's and in the city or within the boundaries?
Either.
Because I think probably my favorite restaurant is Twisted Lemon in Cayuga.
Nice.
Because it's we've got this Toronto quality, 5+ star restaurant out in Cayuga. So I think that's why I love them so much. But that is a really hard one, because we have fabulous restaurants: Locke Street, James Street North, Westdale. It doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find a great restaurant.
Exactly. So on a similar tough note, favorite cafe?
Well, I have to pick the Jitterbug Cafe in Waterdown. Really? Yeah, one, because I once owned it.
Oh, nice.
I did. And two, the current owner, Shelley, is amazing. And, it's the perfect example of what a cafe should be, because she knows everybody in the community. Oh, and if you want to know what's going on in the community, go to the Jitterbug. So I'll have to say that one.
Absolutely. Great choice. Favorite local shop, so non-food?
Probably top of my list is 10,000 Villages on Locke Street, only because they have such incredible, unique gifts in there, and you go there and you can shop with a conscience. Okay. So I love what they do and what they stand for, and I think we're fortunate that we actually have a 10,000 Villages store, because there's not a lot of them. So we're lucky to have that here, and it's just in such a great location, and if you're ever looking for a really cool gift for somebody, it's a good place to go.
Perfect. So favorite event in Hamilton?
Oh, the Food and Drink Fest.
Nice.
I have to pick that one. I think that, first of all, we are so lucky to have that once again here in our city. Easy to park, easy to get to. And, Beaumont Productions, who put that on from the get-go, have just done such a wonderful, fabulous job that I think it's fantastic. I mean, if you want to know the restaurants in the city, go to Food and Drink Fest. If you want to see people that you know from the city, go to Food and Drink Fest. So, everyone comes together. You see people that sometimes you may haven't seen for a while by going out and enjoying food and drink. And it's just fun. And the music's great. Like, everything's great about that event. And it's right here in Hamilton. You don't have to drive into Toronto. You don't have to take the train anywhere. It's right here. We're lucky.
Perfect. Good. And last but not least, favorite natural feature of the city?
Oh, any one of our waterfalls. Yeah. I mean, we have so many. And just the hiking, like just the green space around us, the fact that we're nestled into the escarpment. Yeah. We are so lucky. We have everything here. That's why I say it's so great. And the nice part is that it's all wrapped into a nice little package and it's affordable. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're lucky. The walking trails and the waterfalls.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for all that you do, bringing awareness to all that is happening in Hamilton through Hamilton Life.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. And, we've got a great city here. We need to go out and promote it.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to visit discoverhamont.ca, where you can discover more Hamilton stories, share the stories with your friends, subscribe by iTunes, email, or the RSS feed, and even suggest someone you think would be a great guest for the show. If you have any feedback or suggestions for the show, I'd love to hear it by using the feedback form on discoverhamont.ca or follow and message me on Twitter @discoverhamont. Thanks again for listening, and until next week, take care.